This is who he is. A poor man who will always be poor. And I refuse to be a poor man's wife.
The ring hit the concrete floor with a sound that shattered more than silence. It bounced twice, a small circle of gold spinning in the light, before rolling to a stop at Emeka's feet. 50 people watched. 50 witnesses to the moment Chidinma threw away the best thing that ever loved her. She didn't know it then, but 5 years later, when she came back begging, she would learn what every person learns too late, that some doors, once slammed shut, remain closed forever. Emeka picked up the ring slowly, his hands trembling not with sadness, but with the effort of holding himself together. The compound was silent, except for the sound of his mother crying softly in the corner, her wrapper clutched to her chest, as if it could protect her from witnessing her son's humiliation. They were supposed to get married in 3 days. 3 days. The venue was booked, the caterers were paid, the wedding dress, sewn by Emeka's mother over 6 months of late nights, hung in Chidinma's family home, waiting. Invitations had been sent, songs had been rehearsed, 2 families had prepared to become one. And now, this. "I'm sorry," Chidinma said, but her voice carried no sorrow, only relief. Only the cold certainty of someone who had made up her mind and felt justified in breaking another person's heart. "I can't marry you, Emeka. I just can't." "Why?" His voice was barely a whisper. "What changed? Yesterday you said you loved me. Yesterday you were talking about our children's names. What happened between yesterday and today?" Chidinma looked at him, really looked at him, as if seeing him for the first time. The worn but clean shirt he'd ironed that morning, the shoes he'd polished until they shone, trying to hide that they were 2 years old, the watch his father had given him before he died, not expensive, but treasured, the face of a good man who worked 2 jobs to save for their future, who never complained, who loved her with a purity she had somehow mistaken for weakness. "You happened," she said, and the cruelty in her voice made her mother gasp. "You, Emeka, you're what's wrong. Look at you. Look at this place. Look at what you're offering me." She gestured around the family compound, the old house his grandfather had built, the cracked walls his mother kept clean, the metal chairs borrowed from neighbors for this gathering that was supposed to be a pre-wedding family blessing. "I deserve more than this," Chidinma continued, her voice rising. "I deserve more than a man who can barely afford to rent a room in Sululere, more than someone who calls himself an engineer but works for peanuts at a small company no one's ever heard of, more than a future of counting every naira and wondering if we can afford meat for Sunday stew." "Chidinma!" Her own mother started, shame coloring her voice, but Chidinma cut her off. "No, Mama, I've been quiet too long. I've been patient, waiting for him to become something, but he's not going to change. This is who he is, a poor man who will always be poor, and I refuse to be a poor man's wife." The words fell like stones into water, creating ripples that would never settle. Emeka's mother stood up, her age evident in how slowly she moved, as if the weight of her son's humiliation had added years to her bones. "My son," she said, her voice shaking but dignified, "is worth more than money. He is honest, he is hardworking, he respects you, he loves you. These things have value that cannot be counted in naira." "With all due respect, Mama," she said, but there was no respect in her tone. "Love doesn't pay rent. Honesty doesn't buy food. I want a life, not a struggle. I want comfort, not character references." She turned back to Emeka, and if she saw the way his eyes had gone dead, the way something essential was breaking behind his face, she didn't care or didn't notice. "Someone else has asked me to marry him," she said. "Someone who can actually provide for me. Chief Obi, You know him, the businessman with the hotels and the houses. He's been pursuing me for months, and I kept saying no because of you, but I can't keep saying no to a good life just because you and I have history." "Chief Obi?" Emeka's voice was hollow. "The man is 50 years old, Chidinma. He's been married twice. He has children older than you." "He's also rich," Chidinma shot back. "He's successful. He's respected. He can give me everything you can't. Can he love you the way I do?" The question hung in the air, simple and devastating. Chidinma laughed, a sharp, brittle sound that had nothing to do with joy. "Love is a luxury for people who can afford it. I need security. I need a life where I don't have to worry about whether my children will eat, or where we'll live, or if we can afford school fees. Chief Obi can give me that. You can't. It's that simple." She pulled a small velvet box from her purse and placed it on the plastic table between them. "He gave me this yesterday. I said yes." Emeka didn't need to open it to know what was inside. A ring, probably worth more than he made in a year, probably chosen by Chief Obi with the same care that a man chooses a new car, expensive, impressive, meant to be seen. "I loved you," Emeka said quietly, past tense, already mourning, already letting go, already letting go. "You can't make someone happy when you're poor," Chidinma said. "You can only make them poor with you." She picked up her bag, adjusted her dress, the expensive one that Chief Obi had bought her last week, and walked toward the gate. At the entrance, she paused and looked back one last time. "I'm sorry it had to be this way," she said, "but I'm not sorry for choosing myself, for choosing a better life. You'll understand one day. When you're still struggling and I'm living comfortably, you'll understand that I made the right choice." And then she was gone, her heels clicking against the concrete, fading into the Lagos evening, leaving behind a family gathering that had become a funeral for dreams. Emeka stood there, the returned ring in his palm, feeling nothing because feeling anything would break him. His mother came to his side, putting her arm around him, and he let himself lean into her the way he hadn't since he was a child. "She doesn't deserve you," his mother whispered. "One day she will know what she lost, and you will have already found something better." Emeka wanted to believe her, but in that moment, surrounded by the pitying eyes of family members who had witnessed his humiliation, all he could feel was the cold metal of the ring in his hand, and the colder certainty that Chidinma had been right about one thing. He was poor, and in Lagos, in Nigeria, in a world that measured worth in naira, being poor meant being less, being inadequate, being someone who could be discarded when a better offer came along. He would remember this moment for the rest of his life, the day he learned that love was in fact not enough, that all the poetry and promises and pure intentions meant nothing when placed on a scale against money. What Chidinma didn't know, what she couldn't know as she climbed into Chief Obi's Mercedes and drove away to her new life, was that shame is sometimes the greatest motivator, that rock bottom is sometimes the foundation on which empires are built, that the man she had just destroyed would use that destruction as fuel. But that would come later, much later, after years of work that burned away everything soft in him and left only steel. For now, there was only the ring, the silence, and the ghost of a future that would never be.
3 days later, on what should have been Emeka's wedding day, Chidinma married Chief Obi in a ceremony that Lagos society whispered about for weeks. The venue was the Echo Hotel. The guest lists included governors and senators and businessmen whose names appeared in newspapers. Chidinma wore a dress that cost more than the annual rent on the room Emeka had been saving to rent for them. She looked beautiful. Everyone said so. The photographers captured her smile, her elegance, the way she moved through the reception like someone born to luxury. What the photographs didn't capture was the moment, late in the evening, when she excused herself to the bathroom and stood alone in front of the mirror, looking at her reflection and wondering why she felt so empty. Why, in a room full of important people, wearing a dress that cost a fortune, with a ring on her finger that could feed a family for a year, she felt more alone than she ever had. She pushed the feeling down, told herself it was just wedding nerves, told herself that she had made the right choice, the smart choice, the only choice that made sense for a woman who understood how the world worked. Chief Obi was waiting for her when she emerged. He smiled, the smile of a man who had acquired something valuable, and led her back to the reception, where people toasted their happiness and envied her good fortune. If anyone noticed that the smile on her face never reached her eyes, they didn't mention it. In Lagos, in weddings like these, appearances were everything, and Chidinma looked perfect. The first year of marriage taught Chidinma that there are different types of poverty, the kind that shows in your bank account and the kind that shows in your spirit. Chief Obi's house in Ikoyi was exactly what she'd dreamed of, massive, modern, with a pool and a garden and staff who called her madam and bowed when she passed. Her closet was the size of her old bedroom, filled with designer clothes and shoes and bags that arrived weekly from boutiques that knew her name. She had a driver, a cook, a housekeeper, everything she'd ever wanted, except peace. Chief Obi was not cruel in the obvious ways. He didn't hit, didn't scream, didn't throw things. His cruelty was quieter, more insidious. It lived in the way he spoke to her like she was a child who needed constant correction, in the way he made every decision without consulting her, where they went, who they saw, what she wore, in the way he reminded her constantly that everything she had came from him, and therefore everything she was belonged to him. "I bought you," he said once, drunk after a business dinner, his words slurred but his meaning sharp. "Your family was poor. You were going to marry a nobody. I saved you from that life. Don't forget it." She didn't forget. How could she when he reminded her almost daily, when every luxury came with the price tag of her dignity attached? The other wives, Chief Obi's ex-wives, had warned her in subtle ways, not directly because Chief Obi didn't like his past and present mixing, but in glances, in carefully worded comments at social events, in the way they looked at her with something that might be pity. "He likes to collect beautiful things," his second wife had told her once at a party where they'd been forced into conversation. "But he doesn't know how to appreciate them. He only knows how to own them." Chidinma had dismissed it then, thought the woman was just bitter about her divorce. But now, 2 years into the marriage, she understood exactly what those words meant. She was beautiful. Chief Obi enjoyed that, the way people enjoyed looking at art in a gallery. But he didn't see her, didn't want to know what she thought, what she dreamed, what she felt. Those things were irrelevant. She was decoration, a status symbol, proof of his wealth and power. At night, lying in their massive bed in their massive house, Chidinma sometimes thought about Emeka, wondered what had become of him, if he'd married someone else, if he still thought about her, if he hated her for what she'd done. She told herself she didn't care, told herself that she had made the right choice, that comfort was better than love, that being taken care of financially was worth the cost to her soul. But late at night, in the dark, when Chief Obi was snoring beside her and the house was quiet except for the hum of expensive air conditioning, she couldn't quite believe her own lies. Year 3 brought Chidinma a Mercedes of her own. Year 4 brought a bigger house when Chief Obi decided the Ikoyi property wasn't impressive enough. Year 5 brought a divorce. Chief Obi announced it the same way he announced all his decisions, as a fact, not a discussion. He'd met someone else, someone younger, someone who reminded him of Chidinma when they'd first met, before she'd become what he called difficult. "You've changed," he said, as if this was her fault, as if 5 years of being treated like property hadn't changed her. "You've not grateful anymore. You've forgotten where I found you." "Where you found me," Chidinma repeated, the words tasting like ash. "You mean when I was young and stupid enough to think money could make me happy?" He laughed, not with humor, but with the dismissive sound of someone explaining something obvious to a child. "Money doesn't make anyone happy, but it makes being unhappy much more comfortable. You should remember that when you're back in Suderley or wherever you came from." The divorce was quick. Chief Obi's lawyers made sure of that. He gave her a settlement, enough to live on for a while, but nothing close to what she'd given up of herself. The house, the cars, the life she'd built around his money, all of it disappeared faster than morning mist. At 32 years old, Chidinma found herself alone in a rented apartment in Yaba, staring at her life and wondering how she'd gotten here. She had money, but not enough. She had 5 years of marriage, but no children to show for it. She had designer clothes that she'd have to sell to pay next month's rent. She had everything she'd thought she wanted when she threw away Emeka's ring, and it added up to nothing. One evening, scrolling through her phone, that treacherous device that shows you all the lives you're not living, Chidinma came across a post that stopped her heart. Congratulations to Emeka Okafor, newly promoted to Regional Director of Engineering at Sterling Solutions, Nigeria. 5 years of dedication, innovation, and excellence. The future is bright. The photograph showed Emeka in a sharp suit, standing in a modern office, holding an award. He looked older, successful, different from the struggling young man she'd humiliated. But his eyes were the same, kind, honest, full of the integrity she'd once dismissed as worthless. Chidinma's hands shook as she clicked through to his profile. Photos of him at conferences, at construction sites wearing a hard hat, at company dinners. And then the photo that broke something inside her that somehow still was whole. Emeka at what looked like a family gathering, his arm around a woman who was smiling up at him with pure joy. A simple woman, wearing a modest dress, no expensive jewelry, no designer bag. That woman's face Chidinma recognized with a shock that felt like falling. Grace, his family's former housemaid, the girl Chidinma had barely acknowledged when she'd visited Emeka's home, the one she'd treated like furniture, like someone whose presence was tolerated but not valued. The caption read, "5 years ago, I lost something I thought was everything. Today, I thank God for that loss, because it led me to someone who taught me that worth has nothing to do with wealth. My wife, my partner, my peace. Grace, you are the blessing I never knew I was waiting for." Chidinma sat in her half-empty apartment, staring at the photo until her eyes burned. Emeka had moved on. Not just moved on, he'd flourished. He'd become successful. He'd found love. He'd built a life that looked happy in ways that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with meaning. And Grace, quiet, humble Grace, who Chidinma had once asked to bring her water as if she was nothing more than a servant, that Grace was now wearing Emeka's ring, standing in his protection, living the life that should have been, no, not should have been, could have been if Chidinma had made different choices, if she'd valued different things, if she'd understood then what she understood now, sitting in her expensive emptiness, that you can trade love for comfort, but you can't trade comfort back for love. The next day, Chidinma did something she would forever wish she hadn't, something pride should have prevented, something dignity should have forbidden. She went to find Emeka.
The address was easy to find, his company's headquarters in Victoria Island. Chidinma dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that said she was doing well, that the divorce hadn't destroyed her, that she was still the woman worth wanting. But when she looked in the mirror, all she saw was a woman wearing a mask, a woman who had forgotten how to be anything but a performance. The receptionist tried to stop her. "Do you have an appointment?" But Chidinma had learned some things from Chief Obi. She knew how to walk like she belonged, how to speak like someone who shouldn't be questioned. She made it to Emeka's office door before his assistant could catch her. She knocked once and walked in, her heart hammering so hard she could barely breathe. Emeka looked up from his desk. For a moment, just a moment, surprise flickered across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by the professional mask of someone meeting a stranger. "Chidinma," he said, and his voice was neutral, not warm, not cold, just careful. "This is unexpected." "I know. I'm sorry, She stopped, realizing she hadn't planned what to say, hadn't prepared for the reality of seeing him again. "I saw your promotion. Congratulations." "Thank you." He didn't invite her to sit, didn't ask how she was, just waited, patient and polite for her to say whatever she'd come to say. "You've done well," Chidinma continued, and hated how inadequate the words sounded. "You've become everything. Everything I thought you'd never be." "Everything you told me I'd never be," Emeka corrected, gently but firmly. "There's a difference." The words stung because they were true. "I was wrong," Emeka said, and the admission cost her more than she'd expected. "I was wrong about you, about us, about what mattered." "Yes," Emeka agreed, "you were." "I made a mistake, Emeka, marrying Chief Obi, leaving you, all of it. And I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I thought maybe—" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence, unable to say out loud what she'd been thinking since she saw his photo, that maybe there was a chance, that maybe he still felt something, that maybe the door she'd slammed could somehow, impossibly, reopen. Emeka stood up and walked to the window, his back to her, looking out at the Lagos skyline. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. "Do you know what you did to me that day? In my mother's compound, in front of my family. You didn't just break my heart, Chidinma. You tried to break my spirit. You stood there and told me, told everyone, that I was worthless because I was poor, that love meant nothing, that everything I was working for, everything I dreamed of building with you, was pathetic." "I'm sorry," Chidinma whispered. "I'm so sorry. I lay awake for months, wondering if you were right, if I was fooling myself, if being honest and hardworking and hopeful was just stupidity wearing a mask. I almost gave up, almost let what you said become my truth." He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes was worse than anger would have been. It was sadness. Sadness for her, for what she'd become, for the person she'd been that day. "But then I realized something," he said. "You were wrong about me. You were wrong about what made someone valuable, and staying angry at you for being wrong was like drinking poison and expecting you to die. So I let it go. I forgave you, not because you deserved it, but because I deserved peace." "Then maybe we could—" Chidinma started, hope flaring desperately. "No," Emeka said, and the word was final. "No, we couldn't. Even if I wasn't married, even if Grace didn't exist, the answer would still be no." "Why?" "Because you didn't leave me because you didn't love me. You left because you didn't value me. And a person who doesn't value you when times are hard won't value you when times are good. They'll just find new reasons to look elsewhere." He walked back to his desk and pulled out a framed photo. Chidinma didn't need to see it to know it was Grace. "You asked me once if Chief Obi could love you the way I did. Do you remember?" Chidinma nodded, unable to speak. "The question you should have asked was whether you could love me the way I deserve to be loved, with respect, with loyalty, with commitment that doesn't disappear when things get difficult. You couldn't. Maybe you weren't capable of it then. Maybe you are now. I don't know, and honestly, I don't need to know, because I found someone who did." "Grace," Chidinma said, and the name tasted bitter. "Grace," Emeka confirmed. "You remember her, my family's housemaid, the one you barely looked at, the one you treated like she was invisible. I was young. You were cruel, not because you were young, but because you thought her work made her worthless, the same way you thought my bank account made me worthless. You judged people's value by their circumstances. Grace never did that. When everyone was pitying me after you left, when people were whispering about how I wasn't man enough to keep my woman, Grace was the one who saw me, not my bank account, not my potential, just me." He smiled, and it was genuine warmth, but not for Chidinma, for the memory of someone else. She knew I was hurt. She knew I was questioning everything about myself, and she didn't try to fix me or tell me to get over it. She just sat with me, made me laugh, reminded me that being poor in pocket didn't mean being poor in spirit. When I started working harder, driven by anger and shame,
She's the one who told me that revenge success is still success, but peace success is better. And you fell in love with her, Chidinma said quietly. I fell in love with someone who loved me when I had nothing, someone who valued my character over my bank account, someone who saw me at my lowest and didn't see a man who wasn't enough. She saw a man who was exactly who he needed to be. Chidinma felt tears burning behind her eyes. I was wrong, she said again. Everything. I'm sorry. I know you are, Emeka said, and his voice was kind, kinder than she deserved. I'm sorry that it took you losing everything to understand what you threw away. I'm sorry that you had to learn this lesson the hard way. I'm sorry that Chief Obi treated you the way you treated me, like something that could be discarded when something better came along. The words hit her like a slap, gentle but firm. Because he was right, Chief Obi had done to her exactly what she'd done to Emeka. The universe had held up a mirror, and she didn't like what she saw. Is there any chance? Chidinma started, but Emeka headed his head. No, he said firmly. Not for us. That door is closed, Chidinma. Not because I'm still angry, not because I want to punish you, but because you can't unbreak something by wanting it badly enough. Some choices are permanent. He walked to the door and opened it, a dismissal, gentle but absolute. I wish you well. I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I hope you learn to value people for who they are, not what they can give you. I hope you find someone who loves you, and you can love them back without measuring worth in naira. But it won't be you, Chidinma finished. No, Emeka agreed. It won't be me. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with exactly who I'm supposed to be with, and I hope one day you can say the same. Chidinma walked out of the office, through the lobby, into the Lagos afternoon. She walked without seeing, without knowing where she was going, tears finally falling that she'd been holding back for years. She'd lost him, not just today, but 5 years ago when she threw his ring on the floor and walked away believing that money could fill the space where love should have been. And the cruelest part, he was right. She couldn't go back, couldn't undo, couldn't reopen a door she'd not only closed, but locked and thrown away the key. Some mistakes, she understood now, cost everything. And you only realize what everything means when you no longer have any of it.
The elders tell us a story of a woman who had a diamond but thought it was just glass. She traded it for gold that glittered bright but weighed heavy on her neck. By the time she understood what she'd given away, someone else had found the diamond, polished it, and treasured it properly. She begged for it back, but the new owner said, "You threw this away as if it were nothing. I picked it up knowing it was everything. It cannot be yours again simply because you finally learned to see clearly." This is the truth that Chidinma learned too late, that some treasures announce themselves quietly, in shabby clothes and empty pockets, with nothing to offer but honest hearts and faithful spirits. These treasures don't glitter like gold. They glow like steady candles in the dark. And when you blow them out in search of brighter lights, you discover that no amount of brightness can replace the warmth they gave. Choose character over comfort, for comfort fades, but character endures. Choose love that builds over wealth that boasts, for true wealth is measured not in what you own, but in what owns your heart. And remember, the person you reject today for having too little may become tomorrow the person you beg from in your poverty, not of pocket, but of soul. May we all learn to see value before it walks away. May we all choose wisely before the door closes. May we all understand that some chances come only once, and regret is the longest teacher we will ever study under.